Iconic Texas outlaws Bonnie and Clyde went viral, first in life and then again in death, decades before the internet. With almost all U.S. adults seeing a daily newspaper in the 1930s, a series of joke photos developed from film found after a shootout catapulted love-struck Bonnie Elizabeth Parker and Clyde Chestnut Barrow into the psyche of a nation hungry for distraction from the shattering economic depression. But there was nothing romantic about the way they lived, and certainly not the way they died 80 years ago. A tiny 100 pounds, Bonnie was smart and cute and wrote poems that were published, creating the image of a loving young couple. But Clyde killed with a viciousness that turned the public against them. Just a few miles after they pulled away from this cafe in Gibbsland, Louisiana, their 27-month crime spree, with more than 100 felonies and at least a dozen murders, ended in a hail of bullets. Past this sign showing a squiggly road ahead, Bonnie and Clyde started to drive the last mile of their lives. No one knows what they talked about, perhaps memories of an incredibly stressed and squalid existence after they went on the run. Clyde drove fast cars that the gang stole and often jumped across state lines to avoid capture. The gang used military-grade weapons to outgun local cops, but they foolishly called police attention to themselves. In Joplin by drinking heavily and playing loud card games while running in a quiet neighborhood. Outside Kansas City by taping newspapers to block the windows of the motel rooms they were staying in. And by getting takeout chicken dinners when they were holed up in a former amusement park in Dexter, Iowa, where both wounded outlaws sneaked across this river to get away. In their last few minutes, they might have spoken of Bonnie's great love affair with Clyde, but her love is actually listed in psychological textbooks as the Bonnie Parker syndrome, or hybristophilia. This describes someone who can only get excited by a partner who displays outrageous or violent behavior. Bonnie was a spelling champion and accomplished writer in high school, but with her family in poverty, she married at age 15, not to Clyde, but to fellow criminal Roy Thornton. Barrow weighed just 130 pounds, and one of his first arrests, humiliatingly enough, was for stealing turkeys. He was sexually abused at Eastham Prison Farm, one of the toughest in the nation, and hatred of the place made him a career criminal. At the end, after shootouts in Missouri and Iowa, the couple and others who made up the Barrow gang lived in their car and robbed just to stay alive. After the gang killed 2 Texas highway patrolmen, Governor Ma Ferguson formed a squad to go after them, led by longtime Texas Ranger Frank Hamer. The 6 law officers traced Bonnie and Clyde to an area of northern Louisiana, making a deal with the father of one of the gang members to ambush Bonnie and Clyde. Hamer and the others set up behind these trees above what was then a sunken dirt road. They waited for hours until Bonnie and Clyde drove up the hill about 9:15 in the morning. Since Bonnie and Clyde had shot their way out of previous police ambushes and killed 10 police officers in 4 states, these lawmen gave them no warning. In about 15 seconds, the police fired 130 to 187 times with automatic weapons and shotguns. Bonnie and Clyde each had at least 25 entrance wounds, dying almost immediately. While Clyde was responsible for about a half a dozen of the murders, Bonnie Parker is not believed to have ever fired at a human target. 2 final notes: the last man-made sites they drove past were a church and a cemetery. And Bonnie smoked Camel cigarettes, not cigars. The cigar photo was just for laughs. Or, maybe like their whole criminal career, just for kicks.